Hello, everybody. Welcome to our talk, Ways that Working with Art and Creativity Support Psychedelic Integration. My name is Daniel Shankin. I'm the founder of Mount Tam Psychedelic Integration. I am joined by the illustrious illustrator, the Balinese bandit, uh, internationally renowned psychedelic visionary artist, Jake Kobrin. Welcome, Jake.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. And so we are here for a couple of reasons. We like to work together when we can. This topic is a topic that's close to both of our hearts. We like sharing this, and we sort of feel like um, anytime somebody's making art, especially when it comes from a place of vibrant, pure source consciousness, it's a very, very good thing. We like to encourage that. And also, just so you know, we do have a course coming up in February called Inspiration Alchemy, which is our take on The Artist's Way, which is a book by Julia Cameron, and it helps blocked artists regain a sense of themselves and regain a connection to that creative source I mentioned. And so, towards the end of this, we'll be telling you about that. We'll probably throw out a coupon code as well. So stay tuned if you want to go on a 3-month long journey with us to not Middle Earth, but the middle of your creative being. Jake, you want to riff on any of that as well?
I mean, it's kind of marketed as being a course to help blocked artists, but I feel like that's a Trojan horse. And then actually what the artist way does is give you direct confrontation with your soul. And it's a deeply psychedelic experience in the sense that you will have a communication with a higher intelligence through the morning pages and through everything that you do. And you're a different person at the end of it. It's magical and really life-changing. And I've worked through the artist way twice already now, so this is the third time I've done it in this context with the group. And yeah, people really dramatically change their lives. And I think that the process really does create much deeper coherence and harmony with yourself and with your soul in a really beautiful and healing way. So I'm excited to help facilitate that and to go along on that journey myself.
Amazing. And maybe even, and I feel like Sky threw some rockets in there. I think he's done it too. Maybe towards the end we will share little vignettes of how our lives have changed because, looking back, we started talking about this again, and memories started flooding back from when I did it. And I was like, oh, but that is, oh, Jared's here. All right, cool. I'm still letting people in. So this is what we're showing you, and you may have seen it in the slides in our um, Instagram pages or something. Um, this was a short little article I wrote for um, LinkedIn, or just writing content. I posted it on LinkedIn, and much to my surprise, Alex Belzer from Embark, he's a PhD, he's a psychedelic therapist, um, took my article and put it in his book. So it's published in the Embark Guide to Psychedelic Therapy for Depression. Um, and so um, somebody thought it was good. Somebody thought it was good to pay for it to be published. So and then Jake and I will just riff on it, and we'll open it up. There's 6 of them, so maybe at about the third slide or something, we will open it up for a little discussion. Then we'll do the next 3. Sound good? Let me hit the present button. Present. I'm not used to the can. Here we go. Away we go. Also, you'll notice the background art are is the art from some of our artists who will be presenting. We'll tell you about them too. We got it?
Hmm.
Cool. 6 ways that working with art and creativity support psychedelic integration. Art facilitates the expression of the ineffable. It says what can't be said. Jake?
I think if you think about language as a kind of programming interface, it's kind of like this imposition on the world, which is in its essence numinous and ineffable, and that what our consciousness actually like our consciousness actually speaks in symbols, like dreams, metaphors, stories. And so art communicates in that sort of primeval language of symbols, and it transcends cultures, it transcends language barriers. And so this enables us, if we have these kinds of experiences on psychedelics that are really numinous, that you can't really speak to somebody about clearly just through trying to describe it in a logical language, you can create art where they can feel it and they can kind of catch that experience emotionally in a really profound way. And yeah, I think that like something that happens a lot of the time is that people go off on these big psychedelic journeys. They have these really far out experiences and they kind of have difficulty relating those experiences to people. I've definitely had those kinds of experiences and just been like, okay, I'm just going to keep that to myself because there's something really private and intense about it, and people might not understand. But you can create a work of art that shows that experience to people and kind of gives people a taste of that experience, and then people can relate to that, you know? Um, and it's a way of kind of feeling like you're not crazy, where you're like, no, no, I can show you. Like, let me show you what that was like, rather than trying to convince somebody that something happened. You can demonstrate it through a work of art.
Yeah, I think that's exactly perfect. That's so right on. Um, and I think many of us have kind of gone as far as we can go with our rational minds. As we sometimes we it's doing what it's doing and it gets us where it gets us. And we can do ourselves a big favor by trying to step out of that, um, and kind of recognize that there are things that, yeah, it can't grapple with. Um, Sometimes I liken it to, um, sometimes when people come out of psychedelic experiences, and they've seen symbols, right? Like Jake was saying, symbols from the unconscious, symbols from the transpersonal, from, the cosmic, the music of the spheres, as it were. And folks sometimes want to know exactly what it all means, right? They want to quantify it and define it. And I think that that can sometimes strip it of its magic. Um, it's almost like trying to dissect a frog and then wondering why it doesn't jump anymore. And whereas if you explore creatively, and get out of that part of the mind that needs to classify, and allow yourself to kind of be freer, then um, I don't know if anybody's ever had the experience where you set out to draw a thing, paint a thing, and then you look down at it once it's done, and you're like, oh, that's what it's really about. So uh, and in a way that really can't be, in a way that can't be said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that sometimes the value of what we create isn't necessarily just for us, and it is for us as well. There's a therapeutic process of what we create, but we don't have to fully understand our art, Like we can create something and put it out into the world, and it might be for somebody else to have the epiphany of what it means
Mm.
for them. And yeah, likewise, I feel like there's kind of a tendency in the zeitgeist. It's like, oh, I'm gonna drink ayahuasca to get my download for my new business model or whatever it is. Like we're always trying to milk the visionary experience for some practical gain. But
Mhm.
sometimes it's just totally, like sometimes we just need to have the encounter with the mysterium tremendum. Like maybe we just need to have an experience that takes us outside of our little, uh, I don't know, domesticated plot of reality and thrusts us back into the great wild unknown. And that just in and of itself is healing. And uh, sort of reorients us back to life in a way that it puts us in our proper place.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice to surrender to the fact that we can't always F the ineffable.
Right.
Well, should we see what the next one says?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's check it out. Art allows us to explore complex and abstract feelings that arise from the psychedelic experience. This is another thing that I think goes back to ineffability, is that our the words we have for emotions don't quite capture our emotions. In fact, I've taken in my coaching practice, sometimes if we're working with emotions, I'll refer to them as, all right, so we're working with the emotion we're calling sad, because sad is, like the complexity, um, the gorgeousness and the poignancy of sadness is in itself as ineffable as sometimes an ecstatic experience of oneness, and
Mhm.
can't always be relied upon, um, even if we're a gifted poet. And of course, our art might be poetry, right? And so we get to use, you know, metaphor and various kinds of comparisons and literary devices to really flesh out um, the strangeness and the um, intensity and multidimensional nature of our human experience.
Mm. Yeah, I would say that writing is a profound art that through poetry and story and myth allows for very deep levels of meaning to be communicated in that form of art. So I wouldn't say that the limit necessarily is in the medium of words
Right.
necessarily, but it's more of like it takes a very finely tuned writer and artist to be able to communicate that in that kind of way. And it's like if you ever have an experience of like a really moving concert, and I'm sure everybody here has had that experience of what that's like. The actual experience of that versus trying to tell somebody about it that wasn't there, it like pales in comparison to what actually being there was like. But when I first started taking psychedelics when I was like 17 or whatever, I after my first experience with acid, I was like, "Oh, like I this is familiar to me." And I was like, "It's like the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows." Like for me, like they like were able to capture the experience so well through that piece of music that when I took acid, I was like, I've been here before, man. This is like that Beatles song. So I feel like a good piece of psychedelic art or psychedelic music is really, yeah, able to capture some of those unusual feelings that can arise in psychedelic experiences.
Yeah. I like that you're bringing up that the art doesn't necessarily have to be our art. That
Yeah.
being in contact with other art, and you reminded me, I was doing like online dating, and I met this nice girl, and we decided we were going to go see Sigur Rós, and I'm
Oh
totally
yeah.
sober, and I love Sigur Rós, and it was very touching to me, and I wept through most of the concert, and I didn't get a second date. But I
She didn't
really
pass the cigarettes test.
or yeah, right, or I didn't pass the male archetype test or something like that, whatever it was. We weren't a good match. Let's call it, just weren't a good match. um yeah, life's good today. But I appreciate that you brought in myth, right? That there are these pieces of art, these stories and great tales that resonate on such a universal level, that can make sense out of our experiences in um, really unusual ways that can make sense even when the stories don't make sense, right? We know
Mhm.
that myth, um, the timelines don't always add up, right? And the stories don't exactly make sense sometimes, and they, step outside. We're talking about stepping outside the rational, but that's the way the story goes, and it works, right? It somehow we can just plug right into it and
Mhm.
find solace, perhaps, or find relation, being able to find
Yeah.
relationship with something greater than ourselves through it.
Yeah, and ultimately, I do think it comes down to connection and communication. And I know that this particular workshop is kind of focused on psychedelic integration specifically, but I think that art allows us to communicate all of our experiences in a way that helps us feel connected. Like even if you're making art that is about the experience of isolation or loneliness or something like that, if you're able to communicate that through your art in so clear a way, like other people can then receive that art and resonate and be like, I know what that experience is like. I feel that, and I feel you through that.
Hmm.
So it's really profound that the medium of art is like this telepathic thing that allows us to transcend the barriers of our individuality, you know.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting that you brought up Sigur Rós because when I was talking about like have you been to a really amazing concert, I was literally thinking about my experience of seeing Sigur Rós because it's still
Oof.
like the top concert experience I've ever had, probably.
They're right up there. Like just out of respect, I'm not going to put anything above Jerry, but yeah. But Secret Rose put on a
I wasn't alive in
show.
1987, okay?
He died in 95. You were, yeah.
No, I wasn't.
Mm, right, got it. But yeah, Sigur Rós was like Somia and I's. Well, it was just Jonesy. It was our like last date before River was born. She was as big as a house.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Oh,
and
wow, cool.
and what was really neat about the concert is when we walked into the theater, uh, in San Francisco, there were pop rocks on everybody's chairs. And what he said was, okay, there's going to be a time in this piece of music, where we're going to turn around and we're going to do this to the audience. And that is your cue to put pop rocks in your mouth. And the entire theater was silent, save for the crackling, popping sound of pop rocks. And it
Cool.
was really good, to be able to participate, right? To be a part of the thing and to be connected to, they think that's what we hope for, just to feel connected to the artist and, perhaps even connected to the audience that we're with. And, they found this really playful way to do that. Really, really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So we've covered this a bit, but let's talk about it a little more. It helps us to capture, and reflect on the insights we receive from our psychedelic experience. I'm going to start with this one.
I feel like unpacking a psychedelic experience is similar to dream interpretation in a lot of ways, like it speaks to us in symbol and in metaphor. And it doesn't, I mean, sometimes, there's a three-headed angel that pops out and tells you specifically, like, you need to quit your job or whatever. But usually it's not that literal. Usually what we gain from the psychedelic experience is more of kind of like a metaphoric, dreamlike kind of visionary quality to it. So I feel that for me, some of my sort of most bizarre and indigestible psychedelic experiences that I've created art around has then given me a way of kind of like crystallizing that experience into something I can actually reflect on and relate to and sort of dialogue with. And then having that artwork, then I can start to kind of unpack it a little bit and or like trip reports are great in terms of just like an art form, but like actually writing about your psychedelic experience in that way, it can be really helpful to just get it all down in the same way that you would record a dream, and then to be able to sort of slowly analyze it or digest it and take it apart and integrate it, because there can be messages in there that are directly applicable to your life in terms of things that you might need to adjust in your life, or things that you might need to learn, or um, even just to reflect just deeper kind of like processes that you're going through, or archetypes within your psyche as well. So, yeah. And then also, if you have a really, really high, in terms of capturing, if you have a really high state of consciousness experience, like a oneness experience or a unity experience, making a work of art is a talisman.
Hmm.
It's like you can channel that energy into the work of art, and then it's stored there, so that then as you go through your life's journey and you're like feeling down one day because you have to do your tax returns or whatever it is, like the day-to-day grind gets you down, you can still like go back to that artwork and sit with it. And that's this talisman of that high state of consciousness that you can sort of vibe with and get back to that place. And that's what I think, like, I went to Cosm and Entheon a few months ago when I was in the States, and I really feel like that's that's like what they've created there is like it's a talismanic temple that is holding those high transcendent psychedelic states of consciousness, so that even if somebody's completely sober, they can go in there and still get that and sort of be taken away by that vibe.
There are so many times. I like that. I like the idea of capturing it in sort of like in architecture,
Mhm.
and creating. I like the idea of the inspiration and the vision. Really, I mean, they've done it like really nobody else has, um, and sort of galvanizing it and creating something that has really guided so many other people over the course of decades. Now, was I talking to you? I think about how, um, buying your first Alex Gray book is like an initiation of sorts. That you are, that you're now blessed with the talismans of his discipline. Uh, One of the things I hear from people so often is, what was it? I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I saw. Like I saw so
Mm.
much stuff, and I learned so much, and there was so much information, and I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to hold on to it. And usually I say, something comforting like, oh, the things that are really important you'll remember, and whatever, you'll embody the thing and all that kind of stuff. But there have also been times when, as soon as I was conscious enough to hold the pen, that I was just scribbling as fast as I could to try and get things down. And I think that is really natural to want to like hold on to these things. And I think that there is, can be a sense of longing or a sense of loss to not have access to that anymore, and to have some artifacts, can be really, really handy. I think that's probably another good word. It's like we should open a store someday called Talismans and Artifacts, and
Mm.
we'll make dozens of dollars. And so yeah, having those things to go back to, and really to even chart our progress, because sometimes it can be really nice to go back and see, because I've grown in a lot of ways, and I was like, oh wow, like yeah, I've kind of worked that out now. And then at the same time to be like, oh, that's still a problem. and to be like, oh, this is still a thing that I have to work on. And that's its own insight, that sometimes we expect that we should be cured. Why am I not cured already? And so if you're wondering why you're not cured already, it's because you're like the rest of us. Um, yeah. Um,
Totally.
yeah. Anybody have any thoughts or questions, things that you want to share? Does this bring anything up for anybody? Does this raise any questions for anybody?
I have a question.
Yes.
If you don't want to use words, but rather you make art, and someone asks you to explain, and you have zero desire to explain, how you deal with such people or questions? Nice to me.
Well, you could say, look at this piece of art I made. Or you can just be say like, this is a really personal, private experience, and I really don't feel like sharing right now. And that's totally fine too.
I generally do and yeah. So boundaries are good. Jake has just kind of described having good boundaries. I sometimes might just ask somebody what they think it means. I'm a big fan of the answer a question with a question.
Like, what do you see for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nobody can force you to share your innermost thoughts and feelings with them. You're right. People are not entitled. Julie says people are not entitled to an explanation of your personal experience. So just tell them to stop being so entitled. It's not all about them. I'm kidding. Don't do that. It's not nice. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
I
just
think when it
interesting.
comes to being a psychedelic person or kind of any person who's engaged in any kind of like the not culturally sanctioned states of consciousness, if you're doing any kind of spiritual practice or mind altering thing, is just to like that's going to rub up against a lot of people's programs of and paradigms of the way the world is and the way reality works. And so there's a whole nuance and art form to be able to communicate with those people. And yeah, sometimes the best thing is to not communicate with those people.
Any other thoughts before we move along of these first three?
I actually have a comment as I'm thinking about on my own question. I have a friend who channels art and it's commissioned. Whoever buys it gets a poem which kind of hints at the experience and what is on the picture, whether it's related to time, for example, or some other subject. So you get a nice piece of paper, which I can put on the wall next to the art, and it's a poem.
Cool.
Cool.
I like what you said about the sense of loss when it leaves the psychedelic experience as it's leaving. And I feel like I'm at a bit of a point now, and I guess that's why I jumped on today, because I'm like my cup's empty of all my psychedelic experiences that have kind of, I guess, there's nothing new there that I can draw from the pool of everything so far. And I'm at that point where I need to have more psychedelic experiences. But that was a good reminder that you said. I've just been writing everything down, just to have the experience for the sake of it, as opposed to wanting to get something out of it. Because I have had psychedelics, you know, a fair bit over the last couple of years. It's not very high doses. And I'm not hallucinating. Like, I'm getting no visual, like, nothing visually that different or interesting, or, you know, it's nothing that sticks as a point of, you know, epiphany. So, yeah, it's good to just kind of take it for what it is, I think, as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to say something building on that, Lisa. Thank you for that. Sort of along the lines of the psychedelic experience for the sake of the experience, making art for the sake of making art, right? Like in this context, or really any context, like it doesn't have to, excuse me, it doesn't have to be good, quote unquote, right? Um, and I think about this context quite a bit in context of those who don't consider themselves artists, right? Or who maybe have this, active inner critic when it comes to being creative or expressing themselves artistically. And I think it's important to presence that, right? Because for a lot of us, the idea of even just sitting down to make art is so maybe bewildering or intimidating or challenging, or like there's like a maelstrom of parts that comes up. Um, and so I really love collage as a medium, and offering that to folks that, like I'm working with and helping them integrate, because it can be so wonderful to just like anybody can like page through a magazine, pick out a magazine that like lights them up or jumps out, right? Whether it's a vintage National Geographic or something off of the current newsstands, and just clip out imagery that speaks to them. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of name that, like the dynamic that there's a lot that comes up for people around making art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's a really huge part of what the Artist Way course speaks to. And the way I see it, we're all artists in the sense that we're constantly interpreting reality and telling stories about it. We're all doing that unconsciously, implicitly, but everybody's doing it all the time. And that's an art making process where we're having an experience of something which is probably in its nature incomprehensible. And we are interpreting it and telling ourselves stories about it and making some sense of that in a life story that's our personal myth. And so we're all telling stories all the time. And so human beings are naturally creative storytellers. And that's, I think, why one of the primary tools for this curriculum and this method is daily writing. Because we realize if any person just sits down and commits to writing every day, that you can make something, and that we do it all the time in our minds, and externalize somewhat in the sense of sending text messages or emails or all these things. But we're writers, we're storytellers, we are creators. But yeah, there's this whole kind of archetype, this sort of like grandiose, like rarefied thing that the artist has become in our culture, which doesn't really, that like supports this idea of the unique, isolated genius that doesn't really help foster creativity in the culture, because it makes it exclusive and inaccessible, rather than seeing that as actually kind of like just part of the anatomy of what it is to be human. That like we all have a genius that we can tap into, and that we're all creative in our nature, and that it's not like a rare special thing, but it's just something that any person can tap into. And most people just haven't really given themselves the time, or like taken the actions to do it. And when it comes to learning an art form, I think about it like if I were to try to learn Chinese, I wouldn't after a single lesson be super hard on myself that now I can't speak Chinese yet. But people do that when it comes to drawing or painting or something like that, rather than seeing any art form as a language that takes time to learn and to master and to gain fluency in. And that if they're just patient and that they put in the time, they can learn that. Anybody can.
Yeah, that is that's incredible. Thank you. Um, that one of my favorite things from the artist's way actually is the question is, how old will you be? Like, let's say it takes you 5 years to get good at piano. How old will you be in 5 years? And the answer in the book is the same age you'll be if you don't, right? Time's
Mhm.
going to pass either way, right? It's like you're going to spend it complaining that you can't play the piano, or you're going to spend it learning. One of my favorite, I like, what we say about Elizabeth, about like, the fear of doing it right or wrong. And one of my favorite songs in my heart, I don't actually listen to it all that much. But a song that has one of my favorite sentiments is the Amanda Palmer song, Play Your Ukulele Badly. It's like literally like the ukulele is like, it's okay to not be good at it, but just play it loud. And it's frees us from those kinds of, her song is really an anthem of freeing ourselves from the expectations. Somebody was, I think, you know, somebody called out the patriarchy earlier on in the chat or something like that, but just allowing yourself to um, uh, yeah, we do a lot of patriarchy jokes around here. I'm always, you know, anytime my wife thinks I'm throwing my weight around, it's the patriarchy. But but there's a thing that I do with my kid. Um, we were sounding out the word ant, A-N-T, right? You guys know how to spell ant. And we're sounding it out, and he sometimes gets nervous that he's going to be wrong about the letters. And so what we've started doing is, we were on N, like and I was like, he was like, I don't know what letter it is. What letter is it definitely not? Q. Okay, what other letter is it definitely not? F. Okay, and then he's safe, right? What letter might it be? N. That's right, smart kid. And so just, yeah, giving ourselves permission to be wrong. I'm rambling a little bit, but I want to talk one more thing about what Lisa said about the longing and the loss, because that's the myth of Krishna and the gopis, right? And it's really interesting that, like, I love that story, that the gopis are the ones that Krishna, God, creative spirit, like ultimate connection, loves the most. And he still doesn't show up for them all the time. Like, he shows up for a night, right? They get a night with him, and then he disappears. And the myths are full of these agonizing poems about, where did you go, my love? Where did you go? Why did you leave me? And we think sometimes that we should be able to be in continuous, constant contact with God, with our higher power, whatever, with love. Why is there not love in my heart all the time? And then we realize that even these women who were basically enlightened sages, right, in the guise of milkmaids, right, they're reincarnated, like the highest of the high. Like, not even they got what they wanted all the time. So we're in good company again. Thanks for letting me ramble. That's enough out of me, Jake.
I just want to say a couple things on that too. Yeah, that was awesome. But yeah, if you look at the spiritual literature of all different cultures and traditions, it's filled with yearning, like all of it. Like that's what a lot of it is people like having glimpses of and then pining after these exalted states of consciousness while they're not in those states of consciousness presently, And you see that in like every spiritual and religious tradition. So it's kind of like a universal experience to have these glimmers or glimpses of the Most High and to know what that feels like, but then to, you know, it's like after the ecstasy, do the laundry, as Jack Cornfield says.
Yeah.
And yeah, you got to do your laundry sometimes. You have to remember your Buddha nature and your area code or your phone number.
Yeah.
And oh, go for it.
I was just gonna say, I believe there is a Rumi poem that says, "This ache in your heart is holy. Let it season you like so few ingredients can."
Hmm. Yeah.
That was
Yeah, and I
very
was just
helpful.
gonna say,
What's that,
That was
Lisa?
very that was very helpful to hear that. I needed to hear that. Because
Cool.
as a visionary artist, and if I feel like I'm not having some really significant visionary experiences, it comes in alignment with an idea that I have some sort of creative block. But it's okay to be in that state of yearning.
yeah, also I think there's so many different ways to access those states of consciousness, like through ritual, through astral projection, through active imagination, through dreams, through lucid dreaming. Like these are all different doorways into the numinous rather than just through psychedelics. And as the great Terence McKenna once said, when in doubt, double the dose. So
Yeah,
like,
I think that's where I'm at actually. Like, because I've done all those other things. I've been doing all those other things. I can definitely do more of them. Don't get me wrong, but it's like I am missing that psychedelic experience at the moment. So
mm,
yeah, I got to double dose, double down, double dose.
Well,
could be the ticket.
or if you get confused, listen to the music play. I like yours better. I shouldn't have stepped on it. Sorry, I stepped on the Terrence McKenna quote. Yeah, Gwynny, please.
Yeah, actually, on the topic of music, that is my art form. And so for me, doing any kind of drawing or painting, that is the other medium. Um, Rather than writing, I'll switch medium, and I feel like when you change the medium, you change the form, you have a deeper understanding. To help others understand, it it can help to have a different medium with the same emotion or the same story. Even facial expressions are just another medium. We're unraveling this story for ourselves and for other people, but our creative energy is it's always going somewhere, even if it's internal. It's always there. It's never actually blocked. It's just that we're perceiving it as being blocked.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. And also that like every artist I've ever talked to has experienced what they might consider artist block or like dry spells or times where you don't feel quite as inspired or activated as in other times. And I think it's just it's the same as there being winter times and then there's spring times, and it's just all part of the seasons and cycles of our inner landscape, and it's totally okay. And to just it challenges our assumptions of Western culture to always have to be productive or always have to be doing something, but it's okay. Sometimes you just need that rest or you need that period of gestation for what comes next, and um, to fill up the well with new experiences as well, which is important. So thanks for sharing, Ginny. Gwynny.
Yeah, yeah, I love the energies. The energy is always going somewhere. There's always awareness. We're always aware of something. It's really well said. Sam, are you there? Did you just get there?
I'm here.
I'm just kidding. At the Shire. Are you at the Shire?
All right. Yeah. No, I said to stain some wood. That's what I was like over there before. But no, still where I was before.
How dare you, sir?
Or was it arrived precisely when you mean to, mate?
Just fooling with you. So should we do the next slide?
Let's do it.
Engaging our creative spirit gives a sense of freedom and spontaneity felt in our journeys. I don't pick up, I don't pick up art supplies maybe as much as I could. But when I do in, you know, my journeys, and this is kind of what we were just talking about, when, you know, when I pick them up in my journeys, I am so much less self-conscious. I really enjoy the openness that I have, and it inspires me to be even more open in the rest of my life. In Johns Hopkins University, they did studies on psychedelics and positive personality change. And one of the traits, the personality traits, was actually openness. Like, are you open and free, or are you rigid and fixed? And, you know, what they found is that usually people just stay the same. You know, they are however they are in childhood, and they sort of land on a personality in adulthood, and then they're that way. So if you're closed, you know, it's almost like better luck next life. But, you know, through psychedelics, and I found that, you know, creative, you know, either creative play or just creative arts, um, I think really fuels some of that openness, playfulness, freedom, and spontaneity. And that, just like music can, excuse me, just like music can take us back to our journeys if we listen to songs um, from our journeys, doing some of those same activities like art can bring us back to that childlike playfulness. What do you think about that, Jake?
Yeah, I think that when people first come to explore creative art forms, if they don't have an active creative practice, a lot of the times they impose that kind of quality of like a rigid and predictable process onto it that can hold people back. And something that I try to get people to open up to is that quality of spontaneity, because kind of the fun of making a work of art, or like any kind of art, like when you're writing a song or you're making a painting or writing a, you know, piece of creative writing or whatever it is not exactly knowing what it's going to be when it's done. And you as the artist actually discovering it along the way, and being in relationship to creativity. You know, in Greek mythology, it was personified as the genius or the muses, like these external entities that you kind of are in relationship to, that then guide your creative practice. And seeing it that way is helpful, actually, because it's not like I need to pull just from me. It's like, no, there are these infinite reservoirs of creativity outside of us that we can be in relationship to, and we can work with, and that will surprise us. And it should be surprising, but that also kind of takes the pressure off, at least for me, to look at it that way.
Yeah, I think that, and we might come back to this in another slide. I was talking to somebody about how do we avoid burnout. And what we came up with was not thinking it has to come from us, right? Whatever we're offering is that we channel, you know, where the well is, you know, we're drawing it from somewhere else. And recognizing that, yeah, that we're not really the source, and that, you know, it's not necessarily about the paint or the guitar or the pen or whatever it is. Um, it's about like the omnipresent creative source of things.
And another thing that comes through for me with the slide is just that I think a lot of the times adults who take psychedelics, and I've seen it being involved in psychedelic retreats and things like that, will play, like really play on psychedelics, sometimes for the first time in like many years. and it's beautiful. It's like, it's awesome to see that when it happens, because like people come alive, and it's like they're allowing their inner child to kind of come out and play again in a beautiful way. But like we can tap into that same spirit by creating a creative container for ourselves, where it's like on Sunday afternoons you go into your studio, and that can be playtime. Like that's time for your inner artist and for your inner child to just be like, let to have some space and be free, um without pressure. And yeah, that can be really helpful. And then you can kind of tap back into even that somatic memory of what that experience was like in that psychedelic journey, where you felt free and you felt unburdened and you felt spontaneous and playful and alive. And you can channel that through an art form, whether that's painting or that's dancing or writing or whatever it is.
Yeah, lovely. Really, really cool.
And it'd be fun to give a little shout out to the different artists with these slides too. This one's by Michael Garfield, right?
Michael Garfield, who many of you might know from the Future Fossils podcast. I believe he just launched a new podcast, and he's got a cool Discord channel. Is really a unique thinker, brilliant guy.
That show is
The
incredible.
show's incredible. Jake, have you
Yeah,
been on that?
I was, yeah, quite a while
Yeah.
ago. And then he like made a visual artwork of the podcast we did together, and then he sold it as an NFT.
Right.
Michael Garfield. What a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he did an NFT of my episode with him as well, and I think that I bought it.
Cool.
Yeah. I yeah. So if anybody wants to buy it from me, I'm happy to sell it to you. Um happy to
I don't know
happy
how
to
the NFT business is going these days.
yeah, I mean it felt nice to, have that moment with him, but it wasn't like the best investment I ever made in my life. This is Stella, who
Yeah.
is maybe famously did the portrait of Donald Trump and Putin drinking ayahuasca in the Amazon.
Yep. This is
Chris,
Chris Davidson.
also a brilliant tattoo artist, and I believe
Mhm.
a intuitive reader as well. The great, like the legendary Mark Henson. This guy's been making visionary artists since all of us were born. It's just really just living the life of vision and nature relatedness and social change and the whole lot. It's really, and I can't say enough wonderful things about Mark Henson.
Him and his wife Monty were literally on the bus. When people are like, you're either on the bus or off the bus, they were literally on the bus with Ken Kesey, and they were there. They were living history.
Yeah, you're really, really great folks. This is Martin Whitfuth, who paints really beautifully rendered naturalistic animals in very strange locations.
Yeah, there's a kind of theme in his work of environmental destruction and the impact on nature, and it's really beautiful, profound artwork.
You might call it a magical realism of sorts.
Yeah, I guess he kind of fits into this sort of pop surrealist movement a little bit, but his work's a lot more refined than most of the
Yeah.
pop surrealist stuff.
Yeah, if you go on his page on one of his accounts, he was learning how to do 3D modeling. He was like 3D sculpting elephants, in CAD programs. It's really cool to see. So Michael Garfield, and this brings us to the woman who Jake told me referred to as Lisa Frank on ayahuasca. Izzy
Yeah,
Ivy.
by the way, there's also this crazy Lisa Frank documentary. There's like 4-part Lisa Frank documentary that just came out on Amazon Prime, I think, and it's
Cool.
really crazy. It's kind of like, you know, one of those scandalous stories, sort of like the Osho documentary that came out
Mm,
a number of years ago, but it's like the just you have no idea what went on at the Lisa Frank headquarters.
that bad, huh?
It's that bad.
There's all these like Lisa Frank apologists coming out, you know,
Oh yeah.
denying it. You know, Lisa Frank, people are denying the abuse that happened at the Lisa Frank studios. No, I'm just saying, you know, that's what happens with other cults. Be like, well, they were always
Right.
nice to me. I never saw
Mm.
anything like that. Happens in the yoga world a lot. Ah,
But yeah, Izzy Ivy, amazing artist, incredible, prolific
mhm.
painter who also lives here in Ubud, in Bali.
Well, makes a lot of like if you're looking for an oracle deck, an Ivy oracle deck is a must-have for any collection.
Definitely.
And you know what oracle decks are really good for? Exploring the depths of your psyche to understand yourself more deeply. How's that for a segue? So this is an interesting phenomenon, is that sometimes we don't even realize how deep the rabbit hole goes, right? And sometimes I'll talk to people who have had these powerful psychedelic visions, and they think that it sort of like came from somewhere else. Like they don't realize that those are the thoughts and emotions and qualities of being and representation of struggle that has been going on inside of them for so long. And then the psychedelics can bring it forth. And I suppose the art can bring it forth too, right? Is that we start to look deeper and look deeper and look deeper. And then we start to, you know, we're talking about playfulness, hopefully. And one of the things that we know from somatic work is that play is really healing because there's a sense of safety and there's a sense of connection, right? So these are things that are our deep needs, safety and connection. And play gives us that. You know, I've heard of somatic therapists doing family therapy, and they'll introduce a beach ball and have people just while we're talking, just play catch with the beach ball, and it totally changes the energy in the room, and it gives people this playfulness, and this connection gives people the safety to open up more and more and more. And so, you know, the playfulness of art can make it, and the safety of the page, right? The fact that it's not necessarily in here anymore, it's out here, gives us the safety to look at ourselves in brand new ways.
Mm. I think what comes through for me with this slide is just that, like, Carl Jung considered creative arts such as drawing and writing to be one of the main gateways to our psychic content, you know? And so just how like dreams reveal this whole ecosystem within ourselves that might not be usually accessible to our waking mind. When we create something, it's also pulling from that same deep place within us, the kind of the iceberg that's beneath the surface of the water of our psyches. And sometimes we need to pull that stuff up to the surface so that we can see it and then relate to it. But art or some kind of creative channel is a great way to bring that content up to a place where it can be conscious.
Yeah, well, it's a cool way of
And
looking at it too. Keep
I
going.
just want to also read Lux's comment. She says, to expand on Gwyn's point, There, it resonates to open oneself to other mediums, ones that seem less daunting or perhaps something entirely new. I had a psychedelic experience that I struggled to integrate with many years ago, and I remember getting so frustrated that I was unable to draw, something I'd been doing since before I could talk and identified strongly with. And in my state at the time, I was entirely unable to draw. It was scary not to be able to communicate with myself and others in the language I knew. And after months and months, I found myself doing spoken word, writing poetry. As a dyslexic, I never considered myself a writer. It was something I struggled with. But suddenly, that's what my emotion and creativity was communicating through. It shocked me, and doubt or resistance was there. But the more I opened myself up to it, the more alive I felt. Sometimes we can try many mediums, but I believe creativity will flow through one regardless of choice. Yeah, absolutely. And I've been going through that myself as well, as I'm not painting very much right now, and haven't been over the last like year or so, and been more focused on writing and other art forms. And yeah, I don't think the creativity leaves us. It just changes its mode of expression. And sometimes also the mode of expression for our creativity is in our lives, and just
Mhm.
being with life. Hyperspace Sky, you have your hand up.
Well, I'll put that down. Hey, Daniel. Hey, Jake. Hey, everybody
Right.
else. Yeah, this goes right into like what I've been feeling too is I was blocked as an artist as a kid, like totally going in this direction, but pretty abstract. And I like to like make weird art that wasn't approved in school. And then I lost myself a little bit. And I took Jake's course a couple years ago and found the artist's way. And it helped me so much that like I actually like kind of put down my art and recognize like, well, I need practice to get as good as I want. So I'm gonna start practicing and like kind of do this, but where is my energy flowing? Like Lux said. And my energy was flowing into my family, into my property, into my yoga practice, and into being a yoga teacher. So I deepened that path and I started giving myself and creative energy to that, and it started reciprocating back to me in ways that I couldn't even imagine, and started holding space for other people and then all of a sudden, boom, visions come back and the art just starts flowing out easier. And I still complain about not making art, but I'm sitting in a studio that I've just been making art in for the last 4 years because I've opened this channel of like, yeah, like I want to be, man, I wish I could paint like Jake. And maybe someday I'll be able to. But like I can do other things also. And me relaxing about some of the things that I was putting so much pressure on myself to do, that pressure was creating the block. And when I relaxed, I allowed the energy to flow into be building a creative life that I could sustain. And yeah, so hi, I'm
Hi, how
Sky.
are you?
That's
Good
good
to see
stuff.
you,
Thanks, Sky.
Sky.
And Sky will also be helping out if you take Artist Way course. Jake will be, Sky will be around, and um, he's always amazing to have be part of things. And he might be hosting a couple of like art morning pages, sort of body double co-working spaces and things like that. But whatever he wants to do, we'll let him. Um, so yeah, glad you're here tonight, man. And I do want to riff on, Gwynny also said movement helps regulate. Like I grew up as a dancer. Um, as some of my friends and I would say, we're professional dancers. We dance for the Grateful Dead. We dance professionally for the Grateful Dead. We were also, would say, oh yeah, we tested LSD for the CIA. It worked. It works. This batch is good. But yeah, like you learn a lot about your psyche through your body. There would be really interesting what we could access. It's not the royal we, it's the ancestral we. I really found that I could access parts of myself through movement, and access and move emotions, because I wasn't necessarily taught how to feel those. Learn how to feel emotions through movement, and grieving through movement, all those kinds of things. So yeah, thanks, Gwynny, for just reminding that um, movement's art too.
Yeah.
Let's see, one more. Ah, cool. And here we get the talk. This is what we're doing right now as well.
Hello.
Hi, April.
How are you? I'm sorry if I interrupted you. I just want to say thank you very much for having me here, and I love this talk. It's very much interesting. Um, I love the whole idea of art and philosophy and all of that, and I also have an interesting spin because I would love to get involved in psychedelic studies once certain things change. And I'm also blind, so I have an interest. I do, like, I've done my own versions of art, tactile art and things like that. And like everybody's saying, I love the whole being open to doing something, even if, I'm sorry about my dog, good God, even if um you're not good at it.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Well, you're always welcome to sculpt my face if you want.
Well, you might have to describe it.
No, you'd have to be there and like put your hands all over it.
I will if you let me do that. I totally will. And I love you guys' sense of humor. This is great. So
Yeah.
um,
I'm gorgeous, by the way.
I'm sure you are, and I'm off camera, and so am I. So am I. So
Yeah.
am I.
All right.
Yeah, and I
Thank
love what
you.
Sky was saying as well. Thanks, April. Yeah, I love what Sky was saying about like how creativity was flowing through like his means of connecting with his family and things like that. I think that community is a big one. I've noticed that when I've not been as creative, I've been very lucky to have quite a creative community around me, whether that's where I live or, just in my family are very creative. And having certain, I don't know, we used to call them bounce sessions was really amazing. Where people were like, let's talk about weird, unusual ideas or feelings. And those discussions themselves were where I, at the time, felt like most of my creativity was. And that channel was like broken open just purely by speaking with us, and it wasn't necessarily a physical formed thing that I was channeling my creativity through. It was just discussion with the people, and that bounce and playfulness and kind of, yeah, an ability to feel seen and see others, feel heard, and also be warranted and valid to just like throw out anything that, there's no filters on the mind or language, when you're amongst people that you feel really truly safe and comfortable. And having that kind of discussion is really vital, I think, for allowing certain creativity to be channeled through as well.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
one more slide. Okay, go ahead, Jake.
Oh no, I was just saying, I think that, life is inherently creative as long as you're alive. And the more we see that as kind of like the fundamental way in which life operates, is life is always changing, and like that's kind of what creativity in a way is, just intentional change. Um, and then we're all doing that to some degree or another. I guess the measure of whether a person's life is creative or not is like novelty, right? So like how much you make a decision that pushes into some new direction rather than being conservative, which is, I guess, in a way like the opposite of creativity. It's like when you're just trying to keep things the same. Um, but I mean, even in those kinds of conservative lives, it is creative to an extent because people are making decisions and they're creating a life around something.
Talk about connection. Let's talk about
Yeah, I mean, I do think that like I said earlier, I think that art is all about connection, right? And like a lot of artists are very introverted, not all of them. There's some pretty extroverted artists too, but I think that like artists can tend to be really introverted, and so creating art is a way of sharing that feels safe and that's a way of reaching connection that feels safe for them. Like it's very intimate, right? You're like, here's this thing that I mined from my soul. Take a look at it. It's like quite a vulnerable thing. But by sharing those parts of your soul with other, or your heart with other people, that allows for connection, you know. And I've, like, for me personally, sharing artwork and having that be seen and received has been a very intimate experience for me. It's like that really makes me feel connected with the people that are experiencing it. And the same with me experiencing people's art, people's music, people's writing.
Yeah. I think that we all really want to feel like somebody gets us. You know, that's so much of like some of the relationship work that we do is it's all about like, no, I understand you. Wait, I don't feel understood. Like, okay. And so you know, we can feel, especially in you know, the world, maybe not especially in the world today, but it's not hard to feel isolated and misunderstood, especially when you're a little bit weird, right? Like how many people are here, right? We were down to 26, still a healthy number. But, you know, there's that saying that we're all here because we're not all there. And so, especially if we are maybe not, maybe if we didn't always fit in, perhaps, you know, in polite society, you know, all the more reason to seek out and find folks who can deeply relate. And you know, I don't think anything feels better than to, you know, share a story or a piece of art and have, you know, people be able to pick up what you're putting down. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's like always been the fundamental motivation for humans to create art, is just to, because I think we all to a certain
impress
degree.
girls.
Oh yeah, to get laid. But other than that, damn, yeah, my whole, you just pop the bubble of pretension. It's all out now. But you know, like it's like we're all kind of alone in our own experiences, and that's like a fundamental human thing. Like there's a certain sense of isolation that comes with being human. Like we have our own experiences. No one can quite ever feel what we feel or know exactly what it's like to be us. But yet making art is a way of kind of transcending those barriers, and it's like a low grade form of telepathy where you can have somebody catch your emotions by creating this emotionally provocative artifact, whether that's a visual artifact or a musical artifact, and like to then allow for another person to feel what you're feeling. And that's really intimate, and that builds connection across people by being able to share these, you know, deep, intimate, personal, private feelings with other people in a way that they can really be felt by another person.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a YouTuber named Walter Ruski, and he's a musician who he does reaction videos to music. And he does reaction videos and just cries through them.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, he's a sensitive, he's a beautiful man. He's a sensitive, beautiful young man. And, you know, watching him listen to Fish albums, you know, and he's listening to them, you know, for the first time and being like, they get me. You know, it's like, wow, they really get me. They understand what I am going through, what I was going through. And so it's not, it's almost transferred. It's one thing for him to say, oh, I get them. But by listening to their music, he feels understood. He was like, they would have to understand what I'm going through in order to be able to write something that poignant, which I think is a really sweet thought. For those of you who get my email, I put a link to one of his songs, one of his videos in this week's email. And if you don't subscribe to my email, well, you do now because you signed up for this event. Any comments on these before we start? We're coming up on time. I've been sort of
Just
for those of you,
shout out to Miles Toland, the great Miles Toland painted this. And my friend Chelsea modeled for this painting, and she's also a fantastic artist, but she's not one of the teachers on the course. But yeah, Miles is an excellent painter.
Miles,
who used to live in Nevada City.
You shared a studio with him.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a picture of his wife downstairs.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, actually. The nail factory.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I used to live there with Miles and Maggie.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
What are you doing at the nail factory?
Making music.
Nice.
And business.
Say hi to Sean and Casey for me.
Okay, we'll do. Yeah, I'm next door to Sean. That's hilarious.
Great. Yeah, they're awesome friends of mine.
It's a really neat space.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we love that guy. I'm looking forward to having an excuse to talk. All right, so folks, the deal is Inspiration Alchemy begins on February 10th, coming up soon. It's a 12-week journey of soul retrieval and creative empowerment. It means 8 p.m. Eastern, which I believe is 8 a.m. Bali time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's 9 a.m. and then there's a time shift and it'll be 8 a.m.
Right on. So these are the times, and I know there's people from all over. Midnight GMT, the witching hour. Yeah, it's a perfect time. You can do that for 12 weeks. You're up anyway. I'm being silly. You know, it's tough when, you know, it's tough when, like, I live on the East Coast, Jake lives in Bali, figuring out a time, and we actually we couldn't agree, and so we asked ChatGPT to decide for us.
True story, actually.
Yeah.
Each session will be 2 hours.
Yeah. This is the crew. These are the list of folks that we'll be hanging out with. You've seen some of their art already. Chris Dyer, Alyssa Gursky, Nick from Job for a Cowboy, Kamau Abayomi, Martin Whitfuth, Maria Stark, Mark Henson, Chris Davidson, Michael Garfield, Olivia Jane, Miles Toland, Stella, Amanda Sage. And then that's us at the bottom, Jake and I, and our pal John Robertson, who has also been instrumental in putting this together.
Yeah, and if you don't know who these specific artists are, each one is a master of their art form. They're all immensely impactful visionaries who are very respected in their own fields, and all of them also have a lot of experience with facilitating transformational experiences and teaching and workshops. They're all, like amazing, beautiful, personable, incredible people, and it's going to be really awesome to hang out with them for the 12 weeks and get the transmission. I feel like transmission's quite an important thing. And I've done these courses in the past, and it really does feel like there's a transmission that comes through with each person that's really potent and powerful, and I would come out of each session feeling really activated.
Yeah, and if you go to the Inspiration Alchemy website, there are links to their websites there as well. But yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to work with these folks and be able to hang out and chat with them and stuff and share them. You know, I've known some of these guys for some time, and yeah, it's cool. It's cool to share your friends with your friends.
Yeah, and just to talk a little bit about what the course is, if you're in a place in your life where you're wanting to deepen your creativity, if you feel that you have this potential within you that isn't fully realized in this moment, this is a course to help break through those barriers and to really fully come alive in your creativity, and to flourish and to blossom, to be in a safe container, to be able to uncover whatever those blocks may be, if those are wounds or those are programs that need to be taken out in order for you to be able to really fully express yourself. And yeah, to also hang out with a community of like-minded people who are all intending to do the same thing, which is to come into kind of enlightened creativity and to share more beauty in the world and to get a chance to hang out with all these master artists who live that life on a daily basis and are in service to creativity and beauty in the world.
Well said. Here, here. I'm even more excited for it now. Cool.
I'm
Thank you.
really excited for it. Like for me personally, every single time I've done the Artist Way program, which is what this course is based around, it's been life-changing for me.
Mhm.
Like the person that you are going into it is a different person than you are at the end of the 12 weeks coming out of it. And teaching these courses holds my feet to the fire and makes me accountable to like really do it and to do it also with a group of people. And it's an emotional process. Like there's going to be stuff that comes up that is a little challenging, or you're going to have to confront some stuff within yourself, and doing that in a group can be really helpful and really supportive during those moments.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to dive into this with everybody and to come along on that journey as well and to learn from all of my friends here too.
It is really surprised me how much she spoke about relationships. You know, because you're saying this isolated artist thing doesn't work. Like we create in community, you know, we create our lives in relationship with other people. And I just really remember her talking about the people that sap our creative energy, be it with their negativity and their judgment or with their chaos. And it really made me take into account how I was choosing to spend my time and with who, in some ways that were unconscious and unhealed. And it really, you know, kicked my butt into um, making my circle a lot tighter. You know, really cutting out some people that, you know, I felt like I had to, I don't know what I thought I was getting out of it. You know, how it was, I don't even, you know, it was so long ago. Like, you know, the way that I thought it served me it really made it clear that it wasn't. And so, yeah, your life has the potential to change in some very unexpected ways.
Yeah. Yeah, those kinds of healthy boundaries is something that she spoke a lot about in the book. And I just wanted to say thank you for everybody that is leaving, and thanks for coming. Glad you could be here. And yeah, I guess it's kind of also it relates to what I think Teg asked at the beginning of the session, where he was talking about, you know, like how would you share an experience with somebody that isn't really open to hearing about it, was kind of like the nature of the question. And there's a lot in the book about kind of, yeah, setting some healthy boundaries with people that maybe aren't supportive of your highest growth and potential with your
Yeah.
creativity. And a beautiful thing is that by being a part of this, rather than doing it on your own, being a part of this group container, every single person in that group is going to be one of those instrumental, helpful, supportive people that you can call upon in
Yeah.
your journey with your creativity. And, you know, you know, having done these courses in the past, people have stayed really connected and close through them as well, like years
Yeah.
down the line.
Yeah, it's really nice to have a group of people who are actively championing your creativity, you know, who are not judging you based on like, oh, is that good? But it's like, heck yeah, you're going for it.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to do that for others is also has its own kind of empowering quality to it. Um, you know, it makes us, you know, it makes us better versions of ourselves in that way, and we get to show up for each other. It's really
Definitely.
cool.
Do you want to
And
walk
so,
us through some of the contents of the course?
yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say that if you go to the page Inspiration Alchemy, it's an investment, but it's for people who attended, it's $200 off through the end of the weekend. So there's a second price. There's a special price tier in there for you guys. So just click the less expensive one. Yeah, Mandy, you have a question.
Yeah, if you're okay with it time-wise asking it. I'm looking, I think I have found some answers and just listening to everyone tonight, but I had a pretty large 7 gram dose experience with mushrooms over the weekend, and I'm not an artist. I don't draw. I wouldn't consider myself an artist, but I had this experience of this painfully fleeting, like anything and everything. I had art on my TV and it would come and it would go. And I even reached over to my dog to ground in reality. And, I witnessed her aging in rapid pace and her pulling away from me. And like, it just, the whole experience was this like push and pull and fleeting nature of life. And it's odd that I signed up for this group not having any real experience with art or creation. But I'm trying to like make sense of it. I don't even know where I would start, if it would be writing or drawing, or like, I'm just looking for some guidance or thoughts around like where would I go with this energy. I feel it physically in my body very much, and I'm a therapist for work, and very can get it very in my head, so I'm trying to look for ideas or inspiration around like how to move that experience through me a little bit.
Right. So what I can say is, because this is a little bit beyond the scope of the call, but we'll try and help quick if we can. And I will say that we have, if you go to TAM integration, we have integration circles. There's an open group on Wednesday, there's a women's group on Thursday, and that'd be a great place to share and talk with folks about this at length. I'm a big fan of the art supplies I already have laying around the house. Yeah, Shane Moss, the psychedelic comedian, has a joke. He goes, "The worst thing about acid is when I come down, I always feel like I have to buy $700 worth of art supplies." Um, and you get this creative urge, and so and then there's the old wisdom of like just start where you are. What are the things that you have around, and work with them. And if you pick up the Artist Way book, one of the things that it suggests is, write 3 pages every day. It's got exercises in it, whether you do it with us or not. Making, that old saying that best is the enemy of good. It's like, you can be like, oh, well, should it be this, or should it do that, or should I do the other thing, or anything? There's a green, for whatever reason, the 5-year-old left a green marker within arm's reach. All the other ones are in a box over there. It's good enough. I could heal my soul with a green marker, I'm pretty sure. Jake, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's kind of just the act of like the particular brainwave entrainment that comes through when you're drawing, or that's the healing part a lot of the time. It's not so much necessarily what is being created, but the how. That's therapeutic. So, I mean, Stan Groff, the great psychedelic therapist who used to facilitate very high dose therapy sessions, would have his patients draw as a like one of the mandatory aspects of those sessions at the end of it, or the next morning, or something like that, as part of the integration process, whether they were experienced as artists or not. And so can doodle, and but also I think writing is great, and that's something that is a daily practice, regardless of what your main art form is. If you're doing the Artist Way course and the Inspiration Alchemy course that we'll be doing together. And I think writing is great because all of us know how to do it perfectly. I mean, maybe we're not all Shakespeare or whatever,
None
but
of
we
us are
all know how to
Shakespeare.
to speak a language, and we know how to communicate well enough with words to be on this call right now. And so that's something that you can reliably use. You can just and what they teach you in the artist way is like you sit down to write, and if you don't know what to write, you write, I don't know what to write, and you just keep writing, and you just keep writing, and you just empty, and you write it all down. You know, I'm confused. I don't know what this means. I don't, whatever. Just keep writing, and you'll be surprised at the end of it. So I would recommend to set a time length, whether that time length is they use 3 pages as the time length in the artist way, but you can also set a timer for like 20 or 30 minutes. Is a good amount of time, and just commit to having no distractions during that time period. You can put on some music that you enjoy that's not too distracting. Be in a kind of quiet, private space and just write. And just let whatever comes through come through, and you'll by doing that as a first step be led inevitably to the next step.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a big writer and I actually have been getting into poetry, but every time I sit with anything like that, I just have a thought of words are shit and like they don't do it justice. Like I feel like colors and drawing, it seems so much more exciting, but I just am not there quite yet. But thank you for that advice.
I think the biggest thing is seeing it as something personal and private for your own integration process, and not needing to have any, not need to put any pressure on it, having to be at any level of excellence. You don't have to, like, if you write something, you don't have to read that to anybody else. If you draw something, you don't have to show that to anybody. Like, it's for you, you know? Because one of the biggest blocks that just stops people from even starting is having the fear of judgment from other people around what they create.
Cool. Thanks, Mandy. I hope that helps a little, and I'm sorry we don't have more time for it. It's you know, it's like these big experiences do deserve a lot of time. Just we're already over. So let me just run through some of our stuff, folks. And I guess you've had a chance to look at it. We meet 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. 12 weeks of, you've met our guides already. You've met our artist guides. We're going to have weekly live sessions with them. We use a community platform called Mighty Networks. So you don't have to be on Facebook. Usually we also create a Signal chat or a Telegram chat as well, because we do want you to have connection with each other. And, you know, the platform allows for people to stay connected in between calls. And, you know, not all the calls are recorded, of course, but, you know, it's like you will, you know, be able to connect, you know, in the calls and in between the calls whenever, make friends, you know, have a blast, have a good time. I'll be leading meditations every Wednesday. Actually, you can have meditations with Sky too on Mondays. He'll be there anyway. So we'll, you know, so there's meditations with me, there's meditations with Sky. Rob and Alexandra, who runs our women's circle, has graciously on Tuesdays, or Tuesday mornings, has graciously agreed to open a just kind of like a co-working morning pages space. That's be 9 a.m. Pacific, if that works for you. No, that's her morning. So you'll get access to this for life, and you will get transformative inspiration to elevate your creative practice. That's not tangible, but that is just that ended up in there as we were being creative. There's also bonus, but wait, there's more. Does anybody know the "But Wait, There's More" song by Tom Waits? Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah, there's one. He's just used, the whole song is it's just like hawker talk. It's just, he's just fast fast talking salesman talk. It's like two for $1, two for $1, get them while they're hot. Yeah. But wait, there's more. It's a great song. Anybody?
I love Tom Waits.
Yeah, somebody put like a bottle of whiskey in the chat if you know that song. Oh, look who's and this was Amanda Sage. This art is Amanda Sage, brilliant, world-renowned, world-traveling artist Amanda Sage, world-renowned Jake Kobrin. Right, this is the art behind here. No slideshow is complete without the work of Jake Kobrin. Special bonus gifts: the TAM integration guide to microdosing. Dun dun dun. Won't that be cool? A creativity toolkit for accountability, right? You can track your morning pages and things like that. You'll get a class, a panel discussion called Art as a Tool for Psychedelic Integration. You'll get a creativity class with Chris Dyer, pre-recorded. Emil Amos, wonderful musician. You'll get a talk with him and I on psychedelics, the artistic process and individuation.
Emil Amos, he's the drummer of the band Ohm, one of my favorite metal bands of all time.
Yeah. You ever get to see them on mushrooms ever?
I was not on mushrooms, but I have seen them. And it was
That's
fantastic.
good.
And I talked to Emil Amos after the show, and he was very friendly.
He's a super sweet guy. Really easy. Yeah, it was cool. I was in the balcony, and I was up against, like, there's a brass bar, to help keep you from falling over. And it was like right against like my hip bones and pelvis. And I was on these albinos, and the band, they also have like a really serious bass player. What's that guy's name?
Al Cisneros.
Al
One of the
Cisneros.
legends of the bass.
Yeah, he's like
Also a professional chess player.
he is.
That's what I heard his day job is, which is funny.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, he just kind of has this like dwarf wizard kind of vibe to him, and plays these massive Rickenbacker basses. And so the Rickenbacker bass vibrated the bar, which vibrated my pelvis, which vibrated my entire body, which paired really well with mushrooms. So there you go. There you have it. So you'll get to talk with that guy. Bet Williams, who wrote the book The Wild
Is this
Kind.
this is part of your ebook, like 50 psychedelic date ideas?
Right. Cigaros.
So, yeah. Go take mushrooms and see Ohm with your beloved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I went to see it with my tattoo artist. Yeah. Culture might be your friend. Bet Williams she wrote a book called The Wild Kindness, and there's a talk with her. Email Marketing Essentials for Creatives, class and guide. A guided visualization to unlock creative potential, unleash your inner visionary with Jake Kobrin. Oh, the artist date ideas. That's where you got that from. Artist date idea playbook, and some mid-journey prompts for those of you who don't hate AI. You might as well use it. Your competition is. That's what I think. So that's the slide deck. The class, there should be the thing where it talks about pricing, but the all of this and probably more is regularly $9.97. But we have it up right now through the weekend for you and your friends, special price of $7.97. So take advantage, enjoy, and I hope to see you there. Anybody have any questions about any of this?
I will also mention that we do have a scholarship application. If people feel really called to this work, but they can't quite afford it, there's an application there to submit for a scholarship.
Also, if you're really flush and you want to sponsor a scholarship for somebody, we'll let you do that too.
Sure.
You want to be a patron of the arts, we will allow that. That is legal. Thoughts, comments?
Thanks, everybody.
Anybody have any favorite David Lynch quotes in honor of his passing?
Oh wow, I didn't know that he passed. That's sad.
It's a little heavy. The one that popped into my head for some reason was you'll see me one more time if you do good. You'll see me two more times if you do bad. It's from Mulholland Drive. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Get the stick, get the stick. Very good, Carrie. Many blessings. Feel free to drop us a line if you want to talk about it. If you have any more questions, by all means. If you're going to register, I do it by Monday. It's 3 a.m. Cool. It's getting late here too.
All right, guys. Much love. Thanks for coming.
Be well.
See you all in February.